Hello and welcome to Cooking the Books with Heather. This week we are going to be working out of the Poole's Diner Cookbook, and we're going to be using our Poole's Cure again that we made for a previous recipe, and we're going to be making her braised pork shanks. Now, we had a little trouble finding them, but we did go to a butcher shop and we got these really large ones. It's a little bit more than she calls for, but that's good because there's a recipe in the book as well for leftovers from this. So hopefully we'll have enough left over when we're done to make that. We'll plan on it, but we'll see. Our kids can be pretty big eaters sometimes. But the first step is to rub these with the Poole's Cure and let them sit overnight in the refrigerator. So that is what I'm going to be doing now. I'm gonna kind of make this easier for me not to get porky, and I'm gonna try to keep this hand touching the pork and this hand not. So that's the plan. About a tablespoon per pork shank, and I'm just gonna put all this out and then rub it. I think that'll work better. Even though it's on the sheet, we'll be able to pick that up. So I'm gonna call that good, and I'm gonna get both of my hands porky, I think, at this point, because that will make it easier to get it all over. Yeah, changed my mind. So I'm just gonna try to get it all over all of the sides. This is salt and sugar and herbs and some orange. So I'll link that recipe here as well, so you can go and see exactly what's in it. But it smells very orangey, very herbaceous. And this is going to be rinsed off before we cook them. So that is, I think I did a pretty good job, honestly, getting Cure all over it as much as I possibly could. We got a few little pieces hanging off here, but it's good. All right, so I'm gonna wash my hands, and then in the recipe, she says to put these on a sheet like this, cover it with plastic wrap, and put it in the refrigerator overnight for 12 hours. It's gonna be a little bit more than 12 hours, I think, for us when we start. Not too much though, because this will cook for a long time, so we'll have to start early. But I don't have room in my refrigerator for a sheet tray right now. So I've got a very large zip top bag that I can then put in my meat drawer, which is where these came from. So they should fit in that. So I think that'll be fine. And we'll see you tomorrow. Our pork shanks sat in the refrigerator overnight in a plastic bag, very large plastic bag, because these are very large. I think it was 2.5 gallon for your reference. I have rinsed the Cure off of them and dried them, or rinsed them as best I can. You can still see some little bits of bay leaf and thyme on them, but that's okay. We're gonna put bay leaf and thyme in the stock too. So now we're going to lightly salt them and pepper. There was no pepper in the Cure, so. Our first step after this is going to be to brown these. So I'll meet you back at the stove. All right, we're ready to brown our pork shanks, and I have some oil, neutral vegetable oil, in this pot. You're supposed to use a 9-quart Dutch oven. I only have an 8-quart, and these are really large, so I might have to end up switching them around and doing 2 batches. We'll see. Very loud, sorry. We're gonna brown these on all sides, get a nice brown crust, but be careful, the sugar in the cure can burn. So we're just waiting for them to brown at this point. We're not trying to cook them through. We're just getting some color on them for flavor. And when I'm done, I'm gonna put them right back on the same tray because they're gonna keep cooking after this. So having the raw pork in this is not gonna be a problem. She says 5 to 6 minutes per side. And I'm gonna have to do 2 batches because they're very large. So yeah, I'll be here a little bit. I've browned my pork shanks. I'm still worried about being able to fit everything in here. We'll take that as it comes. But now we're supposed to put in onions and garlic. I have the garlic halved along the equator like we've done several times. Some of my halves didn't stay together, as you can see. I'm gonna do my best with those. Again, yeah. And my onion is cut into 8s. So we're going to let this cook for about 5 minutes until they start to caramelize. It's pretty high. There's already some brownness going on. That should happen pretty quickly. And then we're going to stir it. I'm gonna use a wooden spoon because later she says to scrape up the bits with a wooden spoon. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with that already. Yeah, with this one. So stir it occasionally to get these caramelized. We're gonna strain these out later so the papers don't matter. Yeah, so we're gonna cook these for about 5 minutes before we add anything else. Our pan was really hot, so it really did not take long. I think she says 10 minutes, but it probably took more like 5 for us to get this nice brown on the garlic and some on the onion. And now I'm gonna add, this is some carrot and some celery, just roughly chopped. And we're gonna cook this stuff until it starts, about 5 minutes, until it starts to brown and get a little bit tender. In here I have 2 fresh bay leaves. You can find these with the herbs, in my grocery store anyway, you can find with the herbs. And then some thyme. The bay leaves have been torn up. And some thyme that I just clipped out of the garden and washed. And so those go in there. And then this is just some whole peppercorns. So we're gonna stir this up for about 5 minutes or so until the vegetables start to cook a little bit, the carrots and the celery. I'm gonna try and keep the garlic up off the bottom because they've got a good amount of caramelization on them already. So 5 minutes. This has been cooking for a while, starting to get brown on those vegetables, and I don't want more. There's some burning happening on the bottom and I don't want any more. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a whole bottle of white wine. And now that things are a little bit quieter, I'll tell you about this wine. I decided to go with a Pinot Grigio or a Sauvignon Blanc, something not sweet, kind of crisp. That's what I usually cook with. And my husband picked up this Biltmore wine. It's North Carolina. They're on the Biltmore estate, and they make pretty decent wine. It's not very expensive, about $10 for this bottle. So that's what we're going with today. And we're going to scrape up all of the stuff on the bottom here, just to get all of the caramelization into our stock, into our dish, our braising liquid. And here's where I am going to deviate from the recipe a little bit, because we looked at this, ours are bigger than she suggested. We decided this is not gonna all fit in the pan with the water that's supposed to go in. So we decided we're gonna separate this into 2 pans because it certainly is not gonna all fit in here with 8 cups of water. So, what I'm gonna do now that we have scraped up everything off of this pan, I have this other Dutch oven heating just so it's not cold, and we're gonna separate it at this point. So now I have to kind of half and half this mixture. So watch me figure that out. All right. I'm gonna call that half-ish. And so now I'm gonna return the pork shanks to the pan. So I'm gonna try to put my larger ones in this pot, which has a little bit more room. They're very heavy. And my smaller ones over here, which is because it's a little bit smaller. And now I'm gonna add water half to each of these pans. I think that'll be good. So we're going to boil these. We're gonna stir this up a little bit, both pans, just get everything mixed together, and then we're going to increase the heat to high to bring it to a boil quickly. Probably could have fit 3 in here, but I'm pretty sure 4 wouldn't have worked. 3 of this size. So anyway. Oh. So we're bringing them to a boil, we're reducing them to a simmer, and then we're gonna put the lids on and put them in the oven for 3 hours. So yeah, once they're at a simmer, put them in the oven. I have that preheated at 300 convection. You would go 325 non-convection. Almost all of her recipes tell you to bake things in a convection oven first, but she will give you the translation to non-convection. So we're almost at a boil here. Okay, this has come to a boil. I am going to just reduce the heat a little bit, starting to simmer. So this is ready to go in the oven. And I'm gonna do the same thing with this, and we'll meet you back here in about 3 hours. So my pork shanks were in the oven this one was in the oven for 3 hours, and it seemed okay. She says the meat should have little to no resistance when you poke it with a knife. So I tried that. The larger ones in this pot were needed a little more time, so I let them go another 30 minutes, and then they were about the same. Now I need to strain the liquid, and because I have 2 pots, I think that's gonna be helpful. We'll see. So what I'm gonna do, these have been sitting here for a while, so they should be relatively cool, but still warm. This one holds heat very well. So what I'm gonna do is put everything from this pot in here and then strain it into this pot. That's my plan. So, yeah, you see there's still steam coming off of them, so they're still pretty warm. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is take out the meat, because that's what she says to do. Take them out, cover them with foil so they stay warm while you do this, but I'm not going to bother with that really. These are huge. These are absolutely huge. In fact, I don't know if I can hold them all at once. I'm going to put them in my microwave. That usually keeps things kind of warm. The light's been on. It's a little warm in there. The meat is kind of falling off the bone. It's gonna be delicious. I'm just gonna stack it up. Yeah, this is, I need like two big plates for this. It's kind of crazy. All right, There we go. The meat is taken care of. I'm going to, yeah, these are fine. I'm going to dump this in here. This is the worst part of making any kind of stock or braised thing, in my opinion, is straining it out when you're dealing with a lot of warm liquid and yeah, stuff. All right, so we've got that. Now got my largest strainer, and I'm going to just ladle into here, because the point of this is we are going to reduce the liquid. I am planning, we're gonna have leftovers, and there is a recipe that you can make with the leftovers from this one, but she says not to use the reduced sauce that you make here, but instead to save some of the liquid as it is now to use. So I'm gonna take out the amount that I need for that recipe before I reduce it. So now I need to measure out the amount I need for the other recipe. Which means I need to look it up. 1 second. It only says I need a half of a cup. I'm gonna almost fill this up just to, it'll be more than I need, but I'd rather have a little bit extra at that point than not. And there's so much here that it's not gonna affect my sauce at all. So now we just need to reduce this. I'm gonna clean up my stove a little bit, 1 second. Now we're gonna bring this up to a simmer and reduce it by half. That's gonna take a little bit. So we'll be back when it's reduced. We've reduced sauces before, so bring it up to a boil, reduce it to a simmer, let it go until you think it's at about half, and we'll be back then. So I've let this braising liquid that we strained go for, I don't know, it's been probably half an hour or so, just to make sure. I think we're gonna call it halfway. What we're gonna do now is take it off of the heat. I don't really have a non-hot place to put it because other things going on, but my burner doesn't stay hot that long. And we're going to swirl in some roasted garlic butter. We made that for another recipe previously, so I'll link that up here, down there, both places probably, hopefully. And that is just going to finish our sauce here. We'll finish it with the butter. It's already pretty fatty from the pork, but because we didn't strain that fat out or you get the fat out of it, like, because she didn't say to. So and the only other thing we have to do at this point is taste it for salt and add some if we think it's necessary. So I should have gotten myself a spoon for that, but I'll go do that now and we'll taste it and see if it needs salt. I think it's plenty salty after having been reduced, even though we didn't add any salt beyond what was on the pork. I think it's good. The pork and the cure. So we're gonna plate it up and we'll show you how it looks, and we'll let you know what we think of it in just a bit. On this episode of Cooking the Books with Heather, you watched me make the braised pork shanks out of the Poole's Diner cookbook. And this was, let's see, this required two extra recipes because it needed the roasted garlic butter, which we'd already made for a previous recipe, so we had that, which was good. It also required the Poole's cure, which I believe we'd already made as well, which was one of the reasons why we decided to make this. So those two recipes, relatively easy. The hardest part about this recipe was finding the pork shanks. So I normally shop at sort of a mid-level grocery store, not like a Whole Foods, but also not like around here. Food Lion is sort of one of the doesn't have fancy food kind of grocery stores. I shop at sort of a mid-tier, some fancy foods, but not all of them like a Whole Foods generally has. Anyway, couldn't find it there. Couldn't find it at the butcher shop, the butcher counter at our like big box club store. Just had to go to a butcher for it. Might have been able to get it from Whole Foods, didn't try. The butcher shop was sort of on the way anyway to there, so, and we didn't need anything else. So finding the pork shanks was the most difficult part for us in our area. It's just not something that a regular grocery store sort of carries on a regular basis. I think I've seen it there before, but not very often. Anyway, I think we really liked it. The sauce that it made was super gelatin, had a lot of gelatin in it. We used some of the extra because it made a lot of sauce. We used some of the extra for other things, made some gravy for other things, other times with it, sort of thickened it up a little bit more with some flour. Really delicious. And I look forward to using the leftovers. We went ahead and froze those leftovers with some of the liquid, the braising liquid before we reduced it for another recipe. So look out for that sometime in the relatively near future. Haven't made it yet, but looking forward to it. So yeah, all you really need is a Dutch oven and an oven at a low heat. Pretty good. So we give this one a thumbs up. Kids loved it. We loved it. Not too hard, little time consuming, but not nearly as bad as the short ribs. So if you enjoyed watching me make this, please give me a thumbs up and come back, subscribe, watch me make something else next week.